wife and I were watching the television on April 9th, 1968, the funeral procession of Martin Luther King. And we were both devastated. To us, Martin Luther King stood for everything that was good in America, and now he was murdered. And like many, many white Americans that night, I'm sure, we asked ourselves also, what can we do? Now, I had always felt that the biggest problem with blacks in the United States was that there was racially based economic discrimination against them. No jobs and no businesses. And right away it came to me, what I can do is to buy from their businesses. I can buy black. The slogan was born that evening behind the television. I am Peter Meyerhoff.
I'm Rose Meyerhoff. I'm going to tell you the story of how the Buy Black campaign got started. First, I started by buying groceries from a black grocery store located on Plymouth Avenue outside of downtown Minneapolis. Pete contacted some of our neighbors to find out if they would be interested in buying their groceries from the black business grocer as well. Many of them said yes, so the black grocery man delivered groceries to us every week. We gave our order to him on the phone. That encouraged Pete to collect the names of other black businesses in Minneapolis and St. Paul, such as dry cleaners, upholsterers, painters and decorators, etc. Here is a list of those businesses that were located in Minneapolis and St. Paul at the time. We wanted to distribute these lists of black-owned businesses to a lot of people. So Pete spoke at churches, at human rights organizations, at the Rotary Club, various groups throughout the city, encouraging the people to buy from black-owned businesses.
So people were taking the directory, and we were making sure they had an opportunity to pick them up. But the question was, is anyone using them? Is anyone buying black? So we did a customer survey, and we were pleased to find out that 42% of those who had gotten the directory actually participated and were buying black, and about $25 per family per month was being spent. And in 1968, the first 6 months, $246,000 was spent among 150 businesses. And when we asked the black businesses how much impact this promotion had on them, at least one reported a 40% increase in his business. That was the grocer, and there was another one that was very close to that, was an upholsterer. People seemed to like the idea of buying black. It had a lot of benefits to them. For example, their money they could see their money go directly to the people that they were trying to benefit. They didn't have to donate it to some organization and maybe only 10% of their money would go there. They were directly involved with it. It wasn't a donation. They were actually buying something and getting value for their money. The time was flexible. They could do it this week or not do it. They could do it a lot or they could do it a little. It didn't require a big commitment of time from them either, volunteering or anything. There was no organization to join, and the worry about whether this organization was one that perhaps was communist, and that was a big theme in those days. The communists were behind it. There was an opportunity to meet blacks themselves, and they were business people, and of course, like any other business person, the black business people were interested in making a good impression on their customers, so there was a good friendly relationship between them. And another part is that it didn't take a lot of time and effort. I was very turned on about this project. It was going great. And the better it was going, the more enthusiastic I became working on it. So there was no way I could continue to work for my company, Honeywell. And I asked them for a leave of absence, and they did grant me 3 months leave of absence to get the project to the point where it could be handed over to somebody else. Well, that didn't work because in 3 months all I did was create more and more work. So my company was very good. They granted me 5 years leave of absence, although without pay, but I was guaranteed my job back. In the meantime, the Urban League picked me up, and later on, of course, when the directory became saleable nationally, then I was able to get a salary out of the money that was made on the sale of the directory. Of course, like any fledgling project, we had no money. So a lot of it depended upon doing things at absolute minimum cost. Here, we're in a shop, a storefront, that was due to get the Urban Renewal Acts after the riots in the black business section. This is in the black business section of Minneapolis. Made this rotating sign which was turning on roller skate bearings and said buy black, and there's a lot of volunteers shown here that donated their time, and we didn't have to pay any rent there. And another way to promote, and that was the name of the game was promotion, is to have black business fairs, and that was done as much as we could, promote the products of black businesses, and put, when we could, put signs in the buses. So all the Minneapolis buses had signs in them. Another way of promoting was to get radio time and put on the black business people in the area on the radio, and let them talk about their business and what they did. Another important way to promote black-owned businesses was to arrange meetings between the black businesses and some major white corporations. Now, this is a meeting arranged at Thermo King, which is a locally based corporation. Thermo King owed a special gratitude to blacks because of their chief engineer, former chief engineer, Fred Jones, who had invented the small refrigeration unit that was not fragile and could withstand the rigors of automobile transport, and was used in all the large overland refrigeration trucks. Promote was to contact the major corporations around the country. Here's a photo of a market person that was donated to us for 3 or 4 months by General Mills. His name was Art Dahl, and he managed to get Hubert Humphrey, who was then Vice President of the United States, to send letters on his stationery, that is Hubert Humphrey's stationery, personally signed by Hubert Humphrey, to the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies, asking them to use the directory that we had made.
Pete made organizing kits to show other cities how to organize a Buy Black campaign in their cities. We started out with 16 cities, such as Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, Detroit, Michigan, New York City, Buffalo, Muncie, Indiana, and he also got newspaper articles to be published explaining the campaign in all those cities.
Example of newspaper articles that appeared national. This is the Detroit Courier, a UPI release that was picked up by many newspapers, of course. We're particularly proud of, and here's one in the New York Times in July of 1968. Nationally distributed black magazine, Jet. This is July 68. This Time magazine in November of 1968. Buying Black in Minneapolis. Signed Peter Meyerhoff. Indiana in 1968. Indiana in December of 1968. Magazine Sepia in April 69. And here's Marty Rockman, a volunteer in Boston, Massachusetts. Buy Black moves to Boston.
Expanding the directory from a Twin City black business directory listing businesses that such as groceries and upholsterers and dry cleaners to an industrial black business directory in the Twin Cities listing businesses suitable to corporations such as office supplies and architects and engineers, to a black business directory listing companies suitable for large corporations but on a nationwide basis, to a national directory listing all minorities in the United States, including Native Americans and Hispanics and blacks, to quite a bit of work. This could not have been done without the constant encouragement of the first president of the Buy Black campaign, John Mitchell. Of course, we couldn't have done any of this work without the assistance of many major corporations in town. They provided us with staff, with money, with equipment. These companies, some of these companies are Honeywell, Control Data, General Mills, Pillsbury, 3M, Bemis, Northwestern Bell Telephone, Arthur Anderson Company, and of course I don't want to leave out the Urban League. They were the major factor in this campaign. Our staff consisted of inexperienced high school students or high school dropouts. I trained about 29 people in all facets of office work, including bookkeeping. During the average 2 years that they were in our office, they not only gained experience and skills, but the self-confidence to look for a job in industry. Most of them obtained good jobs. I believe this training was the basis for the School to Work Transition Program known as the Meyerhoff Fund.
Exciting times, and we enjoyed most of it, but not all the time. Sometimes the excitement was of the wrong type. One night we came home and we found a hole blown into our front door by a small bomb that had woken up the neighbors.
We also had a person calling every night in the middle of the night about 3 o'clock in the morning